Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why you're so tired all the time? Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally drained, as if life itself has become an endless race you can't escape. The strange thing is, you're not alone. Millions of people wake up every day with the same weight pressing down on them, yet they can't explain why. In his groundbreaking work, the philosopher Byung-Chul Han unveils a hidden truth about modern life. We live in what he calls the society of exhaustion. At first glance, the world seems filled with opportunities, technology, self-help gurus, endless productivity tools, all promising to make our lives better, easier, and more fulfilling. But beneath this shiny surface lies a darker reality. We're not thriving, we're burning out. Our days are ruled by an invisible force urging us to do more, be more, achieve more. And here's the frightening part. This force doesn't come from outside pressures, like oppressive systems or overbearing bosses. It comes from within us. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly at peace, without the nagging thought that you should be doing something productive? This constant pressure is no accident. Byung-Chul Han argues that we've internalized the demands of a system that thrives on self-exploitation. In the past, society controlled us with rules and punishments. Today, we're controlled by our own desire to perform, to succeed, to never fall behind. We've become both the master and the slave in a system that leaves no room for rest. This is the society of exhaustion, a world where rest feels like laziness, where downtime feels like failure, and where the pursuit of constant productivity is slowly destroying us. In this video, we're going to unravel how this silent epidemic is shaping our lives. We'll explore why it's so hard to break free, how it's harming our mental and physical well-being, and what we can do to resist its grip. If you've ever felt like you're running on empty, this is your chance to understand why and how to take back control. To understand why exhaustion has become the defining condition of our time, we need to look at how society itself has transformed. In the past, what Michel Foucault described as the society of discipline structured human life. Authority was external, imposed through institutions like schools, factories, and governments. Discipline meant following rigid rules, conforming to societal expectations, and submitting to systems of control. However, this model began to fade as the industrial age gave way to the information and digital age. The focus shifted from external discipline to internal motivation, paving the way for what Byung-Chul Han calls the society of performance. The society of performance doesn't rely on punishments or prohibitions like the society of discipline did. Instead, it operates through an almost seductive promise. You can achieve anything if you push yourself hard enough. Success is no longer about conforming to rules, but about maximizing your potential. Freedom, autonomy, and self-expression are marketed as the ultimate ideals. Yet, this freedom is deceptive. It places the burden of performance squarely on the individual. You are no longer working because an external authority demands it. You are working because you feel compelled to prove your worth. This shift has profound implications for mental and physical well-being. In the society of performance, failure isn't just a professional setback. It feels like a personal moral failing. If success is entirely up to you, then so is failure. This creates an internalized pressure to constantly do more, achieve more, and become more. The transition from discipline to performance doesn't liberate individuals as it promises. Instead, it transforms them into perpetual strivers, always chasing an elusive sense of fulfillment. The result is an exhausted population. People no longer stop working when they leave the office. Work continues in their minds, in their emails, in their side hustles. The boundaries between labor and rest blur until they disappear altogether. As Han writes, in the society of performance, people exploit themselves willingly. They are both master and slave, caught in a cycle of endless productivity. This transition from discipline to performance is the foundation for the exhaustion that defines modern life, and it's only the beginning of the story. In the society of performance, positivity is king. Success is tied to optimism, enthusiasm, and a willingness to embrace every opportunity. Saying yes becomes not just a professional strategy, but a moral imperative. Social media platforms amplify this culture, celebrating hustle, grit, and the relentless pursuit of goals. But Byung-Chul Han warns that this tyranny of positivity has a dark side. It creates a world where negativity, rest, and refusal are seen as weaknesses, leaving no room for genuine rest or reflection. This obsession with positivity isn't accidental. It's deeply embedded in the logic of capitalism, where productivity is the ultimate goal. If negativity slows you down, then it must be eradicated. The problem, of course, is that human beings aren't machines. Negativity, whether it's doubt, sadness, or fatigue, is a natural part of life. By rejecting it, we cut ourselves off from important aspects of our humanity. Han argues that the tyranny of positivity not only exhausts us, but also alienates us from ourselves. The demand for constant positivity also fuels self-exploitation. In a world where you must always be on, there's no space for setting boundaries. You say yes to every project, every email, every opportunity, fearing that a single no could jeopardize your success. But each yes adds another layer of responsibility, another source of stress. Over time, this leads to burnout, as individuals stretch themselves too thin in their quest to meet impossible standards. Ironically, the constant pursuit of positivity often leads to its opposite. People become overwhelmed, anxious, and deeply unhappy. The more they strive to present a perfect image, the more disconnected they feel from their authentic selves. This is the paradox of positivity in the society of performance. It promises happiness and fulfillment, but delivers exhaustion and alienation. Breaking free from this cycle requires a radical rethinking of what it means to live a meaningful life. In the society of performance, the lines between external authority and internal motivation blur to the point of vanishing. Byung-Chul Han argues that we no longer need external forces to impose work upon us. We impose it on ourselves. We are both the exploited and the exploiter, the worker and the boss. This self-exploitation isn't enforced through commands or penalties, but through the seductive promise of self-optimization. We are told that we can be anything we want to be, if only we work hard enough. But this mindset, while seemingly empowering, creates a relentless internal pressure to achieve more, faster, and better. Block 2. Unlike traditional forms of exploitation, self-exploitation is insidious because it feels voluntary. No one tells you to overextend yourself, to take on more projects, or to sacrifice your weekends, but you do it anyway. Why? Because you've internalized the belief that your value is tied to your productivity. Success is no longer about meeting the expectations of others, it's about surpassing your own. This leads to a dangerous spiral where rest feels like failure and self-worth becomes inextricably linked to work. Block 3. The irony of self-exploitation is that it often goes unnoticed. In fact, it's celebrated. Society rewards those who work long hours, take on impossible workloads, and never complain. Phrases like hustle culture and grind mentality glorify the very behaviors that lead to burnout. This cultural narrative makes it difficult to recognize self-exploitation for what it is, a form of oppression that has been internalized and disguised as empowerment. Byung-Chul Han points out that this phenomenon is particularly dangerous because it leaves no room for rebellion. You can't protest against a boss if the boss is you. Ultimately, the self-exploitation trap leaves individuals drained, disillusioned, and disconnected from their true desires. It turns life into an endless to-do list, where every moment must be optimized for maximum efficiency. Leisure, creativity, and rest are sacrificed in the name of productivity. Breaking free from this trap requires a fundamental shift in perspective. It means rejecting the idea that your worth is defined by your work and reclaiming the right to simply be without the constant pressure to achieve. Burnout has become so common that it's often dismissed as a natural part of modern life. Byung-Chul Han describes burnout not just as an individual issue, but as a collective epidemic, a symptom of the society of performance. Unlike physical exhaustion, which can be remedied with rest, burnout is a deep, existential fatigue. It's the feeling of being drained, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. And it's no longer an exception, it's the rule. One of the reasons burnout is so pervasive is that it's built into the very fabric of modern society. The relentless push for productivity, the glorification of busyness, and the constant demands of the digital age all contribute to a culture where exhaustion is normalized. In this context, rest isn't seen as a necessity, but as a luxury, something you earn after you've pushed yourself to the brink. This mindset keeps people trapped in a cycle of overwork, leaving little room for recovery or reflection. The normalization of burnout also has a dehumanizing effect. People begin to see themselves as machines, valuing their worth based on how much they can produce. This devalues the intrinsic aspects of being human: creativity, connection, and introspection. Han argues that this mechanistic view of life is one of the root causes of exhaustion. When we treat ourselves as tools rather than beings, we lose touch with what truly matters, leading to a sense of emptiness and despair. Addressing burnout requires more than individual solutions like yoga or mindfulness. While these practices can help, they don't address the systemic issues at the heart of the problem. The society of performance demands constant output, and until we challenge this underlying paradigm, burnout will remain a defining feature of modern life. The first step toward change is recognizing that exhaustion is not a personal failing, but a societal one, and that rest is not a weakness, but a radical act of resistance. Freedom is one of the most cherished ideals of modern society, but Byung-Chul Han challenges us to question whether we are truly free in the age of performance. On the surface, we appear to have more freedom than ever before. We can choose our careers, pursue our passions, and define our own paths. Yet this freedom is largely an illusion. Instead of being liberated, we are bound by the invisible chains of self-optimization and constant performance. The illusion of freedom is reinforced by the rhetoric of choice. We are told that we can achieve anything if we work hard enough, that success is simply a matter of willpower. But this narrative ignores the systemic pressures that shape our lives. It obscures the fact that our choices are often constrained by economic, social, and cultural forces. In the society of performance, freedom is not about living authentically, it's about maximizing productivity and meeting societal expectations. This false sense of freedom creates a paradox. The more we strive to assert our independence, the more we become enslaved to the demands of the performance society. We work longer hours, take on more responsibilities, and push ourselves to the limit, all in the name of freedom. But this freedom is exhausting, not empowering. It leaves us feeling trapped in a cycle of endless striving, with no clear sense of purpose or direction. True freedom, Han argues, cannot be found in the relentless pursuit of success. It requires stepping back from the demands of the performance society and redefining what it means to live a good life. This means rejecting the idea that our worth is tied to our achievements and embracing a more holistic view of freedom, one that values rest, reflection, and connection over constant productivity. The society of performance doesn't just exhaust individuals, it isolates them. Byung-Chul Han observes that as we become more focused on self-optimization, we lose the ability to connect meaningfully with others. Relationships are increasingly transactional, measured by what they can offer in terms of networking, collaboration, or personal gain. This shift toward hyper-individualism has led to a profound breakdown in human connection, leaving many feeling lonely and disconnected despite living in a hyper-connected world. Social media exacerbates this problem by creating a false sense of intimacy. We may have hundreds of friends or followers, but these digital connections often lack depth and authenticity. Instead of fostering genuine relationships, social media encourages performance, comparison, and competition. The constant pressure to present a curated version of ourselves makes it difficult to form real, vulnerable connections. As a result, many people feel isolated, even as they remain constantly engaged with others online. Han argues that this breakdown in connection is both a cause and a consequence of the exhaustion era. As individuals become more focused on their own performance, they have less time and energy for others. Friendships, family relationships, and community ties are neglected in favor of work and personal achievement. This isolation only deepens the sense of burnout as people lose the support systems that could help them navigate the pressures of modern life. Rebuilding human connection in the exhaustion era requires a deliberate effort to prioritize relationships over productivity. This means setting aside time for meaningful interactions, embracing vulnerability, and resisting the urge to view relationships through a transactional lens. It also means rejecting the isolating logic of the society of performance and recognizing that true fulfillment comes not from individual achievement, but from shared experiences and collective care. The society of exhaustion has trapped us in a cycle of endless performance, self-exploitation, and burnout. But Byung-Chul Han's work reminds us that another way is possible. Escaping this cycle begins with recognizing that the values of the performance society, constant productivity, relentless positivity, and hyper-individualism, are not inevitable. They are choices shaped by cultural and economic forces, and they can be unchosen. One of the first steps toward liberation is embracing rest as a radical act. Rest isn't just a break from work, it's a rejection of the idea that our worth is tied to our output. By reclaiming rest, we create space for reflection, creativity, and genuine connection. This requires setting boundaries with work, technology, and the demands of the performance society, even if it feels uncomfortable or countercultural. Another key is redefining success. Instead of measuring our lives by achievements or productivity, we can focus on values like connection, joy, and well-being. This means resisting the pressure to always do more and embracing the idea that we are enough as we are. It also means fostering communities that prioritize care, collaboration, and mutual support over competition and individualism. Ultimately, escaping the society of exhaustion is about reclaiming our humanity. It's about rejecting the idea that life is a series of tasks to be completed and embracing the richness of simply being. By challenging the logic of the performance society, we can create a world where rest, connection, and creativity are not just possible, but celebrated. It won't be easy, but the alternative, a life of endless exhaustion, is no longer sustainable. The rise of technology has brought unprecedented convenience, connectivity, and access to information. But as Byung-Chul Han argues, it has also intensified the pressures of the society of performance. The digital age has transformed every waking moment into an opportunity for productivity. Emails, notifications, and endless social media feeds ensure that we are always plugged in, always reachable, and always working, whether we realize it or not. The traditional boundaries between work and rest have collapsed, leaving us in a state of perpetual exhaustion. One of the most insidious aspects of the digital age is how it fuels self-surveillance. Social media platforms encourage us to constantly document and display our lives, creating a curated performance of success, happiness, and productivity. This isn't just a way to connect with others, it's a way to measure ourselves against them. The pressure to maintain an idealized digital persona leads to a form of self-policing, where we monitor and adjust our behavior to align with societal expectations. The result is a loss of authenticity and a deep sense of exhaustion from living a double life, one online and one offline. Technology also amplifies the culture of constant availability. Work doesn't end when you leave the office. It follows you home through emails, messaging apps, and remote work platforms. Even leisure activities have become another form of labor. Streaming services, fitness trackers, and productivity apps turn rest and recreation into opportunities for optimization. You're no longer just relaxing, you're consuming content, tracking your steps, or managing your schedule. This relentless drive to quantify and optimize every aspect of life leaves little room for genuine rest or reflection. Han warns that this constant connectivity doesn't just exhaust individuals, it dehumanizes them. The digital age reduces people to data points, stripping away the depth and complexity of human experience. Surveillance capitalism profits from our attention and labor, turning every click and interaction into a commodity. To reclaim our humanity, we must resist the demands of the digital age. This means setting boundaries with technology, embracing offline experiences, and prioritizing meaningful connections over curated performances. Only then can we begin to escape the exhausting grip of the digital world. In the society of performance, time is no longer a neutral resource. It's a commodity to be managed, optimized, and monetized. Byung-Chul Han laments the loss of what he calls creative leisure, a state of being where time is free from the pressures of productivity. In ancient cultures, leisure was seen as a vital part of life, a time for contemplation, connection, and creativity. But in today's performance-driven society, leisure has been transformed into another opportunity for self-optimization. This commodification of time is evident in how we approach rest. Vacations are planned with precision, ensuring every moment is well spent. Hobbies are turned into side hustles, where creative expression becomes another form of labor. Even moments of relaxation are interrupted by the need to check emails, scroll social media, or track productivity metrics. The idea that time must always be useful has stripped us of the ability to simply exist, to enjoy life without an agenda. Han argues that this loss of creative leisure has profound implications for our mental and emotional well-being. Without unstructured time, we lose the ability to reflect, imagine, and connect with our inner selves. Creativity thrives in moments of idleness, yet idleness is now seen as a waste of time. This shift has left us disconnected from the deeper aspects of life, reducing our existence to a series of tasks and achievements. To reclaim creative leisure, we must challenge the idea that time is a commodity. This means prioritizing activities that have no measurable outcome, reading for pleasure, taking a walk, or simply daydreaming. It requires rejecting the pressure to be constantly productive and embracing the value of unstructured, unhurried time. By doing so, we can rediscover the joy, creativity, and meaning that the society of performance has taken from us.